All right, moving to the next item on the agenda is agenda item number 9, Mr. Franchini, Deputy Superintendent. Tonight, Mr. Franchini brings to the board an item for action, second reading of policies and rules IDG, IHC, and IHF-R. Mr. Franchini, the microphone is yours, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Dr. Thompson, members of the board. I'd like to ask Dr. Levine to come forward to present those policies for second reading.
Good evening, Dr. Levine.
Good evening, Board Chair Murray, members of the board, Superintendent Thompson. The first reading for changes to policy IDG, Adult Education Program, policy IHC, Rank and Class, Honor Graduates, Graduation Ceremonies, and Rule IHF-R, Graduation Requirements, was approved at the January 13, 2015 school board meeting. As indicated at that time, the policies and rule needed to be updated to remove all references to an exit exam requirement. As such, it is the recommendation of the administration to approve the second and final reading for policies as listed under item 9 of the January 27, 2015 board agenda.
Thank you, Dr. Levine. Do I have a motion and a second regarding agenda item 9?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve agenda item 9, second and final reading for policies and rules IDG, IHC, and IHF-R.
I'll second.
Was that Ms. Lee? Was that you
Yes.
second? Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Obie, a second by Ms. Lee to approve the recommendation of the administration to approve the second and final reading for policies as listed under item 9 of the January 27th, 2015 board agenda. Do we have any discussion regarding this motion? Hearing no discussion, we will call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. Dr. Levine, the second reading has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is agenda item 10, Mr. Thomas, Financial Services. Tonight, Mr. Thomas has 2 items for action, RFP 441 and RFP 409. He also has 2 items for information. Mr. Thomas.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Thompson. We have RFP 441 for online student registration systems through InfoSnap. I'm passing around a list of things that they can do for us. But basically, InfoSnap allows us to move a lot of our paper forms and information parents fill out over and over online. And there are a lot of checks that we can put into place so the information is validated, like location of their home, make sure they're in the right attendance zones, those sorts of things. So we have that bid out, and we would like to award that bid to InfoSnap for an initial cost of $92,800 and then annual recurring for years 2 to 6 of $76,181 for estimated cost of $549,886. But after the first year or second year, we can always get out of the contract as well if it's not doing what we want it to do. But ask for your approval to award that to InfoSnap.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Regarding agenda item 10A, RFP 441, do I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve RFP 441-1415 for an online student registration system to InfoSnap Incorporated for an initial cost of $92,800 and an annual recurring cost of years 2 through 6 of $76,181 for a total estimated cost of the contract term to be $549,886 as presented by Mr. Thomas in Finance Agenda Item 10A.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mrs. Schwabe. We have a motion and a second. I will repeat that motion for the record. A motion has been made to approve RFP 441 for the 2014-15 school year for an online student registration system to InfoSnap Incorporated for an initial cost of $92,800 and an annual recurring cost for years 2 through 6 of $76,181 for a total estimated cost for the contract term of $549,886, as presented by Mr. Thomas in Finance Agenda Item 10A. Do we have any discussion regarding the motion?
I just have a.
Ms. Schwabe?
Mr. Chair. So, this list of all of these forms, that are currently paper, and, for that cost, does that mean all of these are automatically available? Or
We
do
can
pick
go
from
through and
this
evaluate and pick and choose what we want. It's
But
one of
it-
those things, you working smarter, not harder, kind of thing.
Right, but it could all be included.
I believe so, yes,
And more.
and more.
These are just samples. We can have our own forms or adapt these forms to meet
Right.
our needs.
Gotcha.
There's also, I think, a PowerPoint that's been posted to your website or your server to see, and then also there's a brochure that I handed out for y'all to have, so.
All right. Ms. Schwabe, does that conclude your comments? Ms. Lee?
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that I actually was able to listen to a presentation from one of the gentlemen from InfoSnap and was part of a group of parents that was presented to along with principals and administrators. And from my standpoint as a parent and from what I heard from other parents, it was very well received. People appreciated not having a million papers beginning of the school year or semester. And if you have multiple children in school, you know that somewhere something is getting lost, that, you know, that first couple of weeks of school. And this kind of made it easier and streamlined. And just, you know, speaking as a parent, it was well received.
All right. Thank you for your recommendation, Ms. Lee. Mr. Obie?
I had a few different questions. Have we done a cost benefit, so the amount that we'll spend on this over, if I understood correctly, the 3-year term, the almost $550,000, is there a savings in all the paperwork and such that
Yeah.
we'll realize for spending the money on the online system versus the current way it's being done now?
Haven't done the actual savings, but there will be hard and soft cost, like people's time and, you know, those kinds of things. So we can definitely do that, but it's, haven't done that calculation.
I think that'd be helpful.
And it's a 6-year term, not a
Yes.
3-year term.
6-year.
Okay, right, the motion would read, initial cost in year 1, and the remainder of the motion would say years 2 through 6. Did I understand that
That's correct,
correctly?
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, Mr. Obie, well, I think you had some more questions.
Oh,
Ms. Schwabe, I'll
go
come
ahead.
back to you.
I'm
Go ahead, Mr. Obie.
Yeah, so then the next question is, will we be able to accommodate inside our offices a computer for parents to use who might not have computer or internet access at home?
I believe we have that access now. Diane is here.
Yeah, we could, I mean, we could always, you know, the media center, or we could set something up, for this. And it works actually with PowerSchool, the
Right.
parent portal.
Mhm.
They can, whenever a student, a lot of parents are using that now, whenever they log in through, PowerSchool, they'll be able to go right into this program, and then whatever information they put in there will go directly to, PowerSchool. So they don't have to enter it in at the school level.
Yeah, I know you have another question. I just want to make a comment to one of the biggest challenges we face the first week of school, especially of our high school students. You can go to Goose Creek High School on the first day of school and find over 100 students waiting in the media center, waiting to be registered. Because it's not just registering, we have to get records from other schools to see what's scheduled to build. And so if we're trying to determine allocations in the first 10 days of schools, we're trying to limit the amount of teachers that we have to ship from one school to another because of student transfer. So we're trying to expedite the situation and allow people to start the process a little bit earlier, hopefully online, especially if they're out of state. They can start this, access the software online and start that process earlier than just arriving the first day of school. We know it's not going to cure all of those issues, but we're trying our best, number one, to limit the amount of papers that our teachers have to handle and keep up with and sort, because the teachers are the ones that collect all this information, and they have to sort it and provide it to the other folks. Number two, the number of teachers that we have to move. You can imagine a first grade teacher, you have a first grader, and 7 days into it, we have to move your teacher to another school. So we're trying to get a better count of where these students are actually going to show up. So hopefully hope with that process. It's hard to put a measure or a cost or a value to that, but just the trauma to a student to take their teacher away from them the first week is, I mean, it's tough going to the first grade anyway, and then if you have to change teachers, that just makes the transition a little more severe.
All right, Mr. Obie, you've got
I
another?
have
Go ahead.
One final question, is the point that, I thought about with the online registration and the point that Brantley made. So we said that we'll be able to register online, and avoid all the paperwork and the office checks. And not that this would ever happen in Berkeley County, but how would we verify that the address they put on there is their actual address and not a friend's address, a grandparent's address, a cousin's address, or something to that effect?
Well, just like any other time someone registers, there's a capability for them to upload a picture of their driver's license, upload a picture of their power bill. And so when we get at someone's power bill, we take it on the surface that that's where they live until we have reason to investigate. So they can upload the same documentation as on the online services if they walked in the door, and the check process would be the same.
So, but there would be no, I guess, so I can go in there and register and say I live on Daniel Island proper, and there would be no checking of that until somebody was wondering why I was driving from, off Daniel Island every day, is that?
Or if you're late every day to school, then
Yeah,
they know you're not from there.
If I have a student that walks, whether they register online or they walk in the front door, if they have documentation, 2 proofs of residence, we take that on the surface unless we have a reason to invest. We don't go check out every time someone registers a school. We, like to think that people.
Yeah, no, I'm just, if we're saying we're gonna put those documentations on, and then somebody's still gonna have to physically look at everybody that registers, just like we're doing now, unless we're not gonna check it until we have a problem, I guess.
It's paperless, and it's going into the file, electronic file.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Obie, does that conclude your comments?
For now, yes.
For now. All right, anyone else who hasn't had an opportunity to speak to the motion at this point, would you like to speak before I go to the folks who wanted to ask some more questions? All right, Ms. Schwabe, and then we'll go to Ms. Lee.
I was just going to elaborate on the teacher time that this takes.
Sure.
And when you are talking about those first days of school and how this dwindles in, it's not just an event either. It lives on for a while.
Yes,
So,
it's very
I think that's really important. This cost, that's a lot of money to me, and it's a lot of money, I get it, but when I multiply the number of, children we're talking about, and the number of teachers, and the trees that we're killing, and now that I see this list, this really helped a lot too, how many things can be taken care of.
Deal. All right.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Lee, certainly.
I'll yield to Mr. McQuillan. I believe he had a question.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking in the information you gave us, and it does say that Horry County is really pleased with this.
Yes, there is some referrals and stuff in other districts that use it, so.
And it looks like they did sort of a cost-benefit analysis where they saved $14,000 annually in terms of postage alone.
Yeah.
But it would be helpful to me, like Mr. Obie mentioned, if we did have some sort of hard and soft
Yeah.
cost, because this is, it's $92,000.
Right,
It'd be
right.
nice for us to, at least to justify why
Yeah.
we're spending this
I'll
much
get-
money.
I'll working on that. so.
Okay.
All right, any other comments or questions? Ms. Lee? Did you want to speak, Ms. Walker? I can come back to you.
I'll say I just did the math. That's $3.43 a kid per year. So that's just think, I don't know if you have very many kids that you fill out the stacks for, but the simple math makes me think that makes sense.
All right, Ms. Lee.
Yes, like I said, I was in that presentation. One of the questions was asked about, what Mr. Obie said, families that don't have a computer or internet access. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Diane, but I believe that they said that one of the principals said that they did have families like that, and they had a spot in their media center or in their front office. But is that correct? A lot of schools have that?
Yeah, they do, and then the public library, just anyway that they can't get internet access to the building.
So it'd be nice, with parents coming in and registering,
certainly.
and, there's a computer right there they could access. That
A
would be
lot
good.
of our schools have, we don't have the official parenting room now, but we do have spaces in the schools for parents to come in to have access to the internet and use our computers.
Okay, does this complete our discussion? Hearing no further comments or questions, the motion has been stated for the record. There was a motion by Ms. Lee, seconded by Ms. Schwabe, to approve the administration's recommendation for RFP 441. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chair, I want to abstain. I'd like to see the cost benefit analysis.
So Mr. Obie, please record Mr. Obie as an abstention. All right, so then that vote will actually be 7-0-1. All right, thank you. Mr. Thomas, RFP 409, agenda item 10B.
This is design services and suppliers from South Carolina, and I'll explain the Beaufort County School District thing in a minute. But all these, we went through a very detailed process of having classrooms set up in various schools throughout the district for people to go and see the furniture, test it out, and evaluate what they liked and what they didn't like about it. So we've gone through that process. And all these vendors here are state contract or U.S. communities, which we could have bought from anyway, but we wanted to kind of have a formalized process. The reason for Beaufort County School District is that we have in the state cooperative purchasing language in some of the bids, so we're allowed to use other school districts' bids through that cooperative language, and that's why Beaufort's in there. So they've done some work. We don't want to have to reinvent the wheel, so that's kind of it. There's no numbers assigned to this because these will be for new schools and those and needs for growth with new children. So we would like to award 409-1314 to Hahn Company for new construction classroom offices and whole classroom orders. New idea for auxiliary spaces for all facilities. That would be like lunchrooms, computer labs, libraries, those kinds of things. And then Verco for supplemental orders as they may have some items that we would need as well. So I'd like to ask for your approval of that bid.
All right, in reference to agenda item 10B, do I have a motion and a second?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve RFP 409, Design Services and Suppliers from South Carolina and Beaufort School District contract for school furnishings to the Hahn Company for new construction classrooms, offices, and whole classroom orders. New Idea School Supply, Inc. for auxiliary spaces for all facilities, and Verco Incorporated for supplemental orders as presented by Mr. Thomas in Finance Agenda Item 10B.
Thank you, Ms. Schwabe. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Walford. For the record, a motion has been made by Mrs. Schwabe, seconded by Mrs. Walford to approve RFP 409, Design Services and Suppliers from South Carolina and Beaufort School District contract for school furnishings to the Hahn Company for new construction classrooms, offices, and whole classroom orders. New Idea School Supply Incorporated for auxiliary spaces for all facilities, and Verco Incorporated for supplemental orders, as presented by Mr. Thomas in Finance Agenda Item 10B. All those in, do we have any discussion regarding the motion on the table?
I got a question.
Mr. Obie, go ahead.
So based on the two new schools we built over the last 3 years, Cane Bay Elementary and Cane Bay Middle, do we see significant savings in using this statewide bid versus who we've had furnish those other schools?
The prices that we've gotten based on the process they went to are better than the other ones, like Cane Bay Middle and that sort of thing. So we will see some savings.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments regarding Agenda Item 10B? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The motion has been stated by the record. That motion was made by Mrs. Schwabe, seconded by Ms. Walford. All those in support of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 8-0, unanimous. Mr. Thomas, both agenda items 10A and 10B have been approved. Next up are items for information. First, we have the December 31st, 2014 Finance Report. Mr. Thomas.
We wanted to give you a mid-year update, a quarterly update for the general fund all through food service as to revenues and expenditures. You can see for the general fund revenues, we're 65% yet to receive, even though we're like at the 50% ideal remaining percentage. Again, the majority of that is because taxes haven't really been received in earnest until January. We just received an advance for January taxes of about $19 million. So the next quarter, you'll see some much better numbers here. And once they finish with January, we'll get some more out of that as well. So so this is about, consistent with where we've been in the past. With that advance, we did a tax anticipation note, which we'll talk about during the budget process through June. And we've paid a third of that back already. And I hope by the next advance, I'll be able to pay the whole thing off, which will reduce our interest cost as well, even though the interest was 0.01 something percent. So, so that's a good thing. Expenditures are basically on target with the ideal remaining percentage. You want to see a little difference between the ideal remaining percentage and budget to expend of 8% or more, and that's because of the summer salaries for teachers and other 9-month employees. So that's a good thing. Special revenue, these are Title I, special education, and some other state revenues that are considered special revenue. This is typical of this revenue source because a lot of the federal grants are just now being approved, and we'll be starting to do some aggressive claiming to catch up with the expenditures on the next slide. So again, this is typical of every single school year in these groups of accounts. Expenditures are in the good range as far as that budget to expend, and probably it's like 50% obviously, but 66 yet to spend. But we'll I think some of those grants are being held back as far as spending until we start getting the grants approved. So so this is typical as well. EIA, right on target with the revenue. And expenditures, same as the special revenue funds as well, and some of the same reasons as well. So, but in a good place there. Capital projects, again, this is will be a multi-year report because there will be bond issues, proceeds being issued over multiple years. So we'll just kind of try to keep this in an aggregate amount. So we basically have the rest of the referendum we've already issued, 100 million. We'll have the 98 to issue in 2016 for the 2017 tax year. So we'll finish that off in the next couple of years. Capital projects, the majority of that is the referendum. There's some capital improvements in there. So again, as well, the referendum will go over multiple years. So the percentage is not atypical. Food service, budget to receive 59%. And these are usually a month or so lagging because you got to do the free and reduced filing with the state for that reimbursement. So it's usually a month or two behind. So that's typical as well. Expenditures, basically also in a good place as well. Most of these employees are 9 and 10 months. So so a lot of that too will be accrual checks as well. And these are just some reminders of things that we've done over the last couple of years, just try as far as our area of focus in the finance. So I wanted to kind of keep reminding you of these. Procurement code, we'll be talking about that in a minute. And doing these as well. Turn lights back on.
Right,
Any questions? Or?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Do we have any questions or comments for Mr. Thomas regarding Agenda Item 10A, the December 31st, 2014 Finance Report? You have any questions, comments? All right, Mr. Thomas, you are very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now moving on to mid-year procurement reports, primarily sole source, emergency, minority, business, and purchase orders over $100,000.
This is the folder of the backup. As you know, it's pretty detailed and a lot of information. So as you go through this, it's a required process that we have to do per our procurement code to do these semi-annual reports. But if you go through your information and have any specific questions, feel free to contact me during the week or next week or whatever. But you should have all those on your server as well. But here's the documentation on this if you have any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Appreciate your report this evening.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 11, Administration and Facilities. Mr. Jackson has an item for action this evening, the first reading of the Nexton Elementary School attendance lines.
Good evening, Chairman Murray, Dr. Thompson, members of the board. Tonight, I'd like to present to you the proposed attendance lines for Nexton Elementary School. All right, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm proud to say that Nexton Elementary School is, the construction is right now on time and right now on budget and ready, scheduled to be ready for August of 2015. In order to establish the attendance lines for Nexton Elementary School, we're going to have to make some adjustments to the current attendance lines for Sangaree Intermediate School, Sangaree Elementary School, and Cane Bay Elementary Schools. We also saw the opportunity to address some overcrowding issues at College Park Elementary. Right now, currently, College Park Elementary has 2 fifth grade classes that are being housed at College Park Middle. As you see here, this is the latest version of our proposed attendance zones. And I'll go into a little bit more details in a second. This map has actually been on display for the past couple of weeks since we've made the adjustment at the last board meeting. Areas of noticeable change, and this is talking about noticeable change from the current attendance lines to the proposed attendance lines. As you'll see, the here we go. The Weatherstone area here. This is the area west of I-26 behind Target. That area is currently zoned for the Sangaree Intermediate and Elementary Schools. That area would be zoned for Nexton Elementary, and also the Tramway and Carriage Lane area, which is back here. That is an area that is also currently zoned for Sangaree Intermediate and Elementary, and that area, clearly because of its proximity, would be zoned for Nexton Elementary School. All right, also, as I mentioned earlier, we saw an opportunity to relieve some of the overcrowding issues at College Park Elementary. And this is where in the Tall Pines area, as I said before, these students currently attend College Park Elementary School. Under the proposed changes, these students would attend Sangaree Intermediate and Sangaree Elementary Schools. For K through 5, there are no recommendations for any changes for the middle school or high school attendance zones at this time. So these students for their middle school years would attend College Park Middle and high school at Stratford High School as they currently do. This is just a slide showing the community engagement meetings that we had. Public meetings were held on January 6th and January 8th at Cane Bay Elementary School and Sangaree Elementary Schools to allow parents and community members an opportunity to view the proposed attendance lines and provide some feedback. In addition, the proposed attendance lines have been published on the district's website and also the Facebook page. Okay, as you recall, during the January 13th board meeting, the administration made a recommendation to postpone any adjustments made to Whitesville Elementary School, Berkeley Elementary School, and Berkeley Intermediate School's attendance lines at this time. Go back. All right, so this slide shows the map reflecting no changes made to the Berkeley Intermediate, Berkeley Elementary attendance lines, and also the Whitesville attendance lines. Sorry about that. All right, the last note is with the proposed changes, fifth grade students that are zoned for Cane Bay Elementary School will continue to attend Cane Bay Middle. However, we should be able to remove the trailers or learning cottages that are currently at Cane Bay Elementary School. Keeping the 5th grade at Cane Bay Middle will allow Cane Bay Elementary to deal with some of the imminent growth that we know is coming to the area. This situation, again, can be revisited once we have a more concrete opening date for Fox Bank Elementary. And with that, it's the recommendation of the administration to adopt the proposed attendance lines for Cane Bay Elementary School, College Park Elementary School, Sangaree Elementary School, and Nexton Elementary School as shown during the presentation. These changes will go into effect in August of 2015-2016 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Do I have a motion and a second regarding the first reading of the Nexton Elementary attendance lines?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept the administration's recommendation to adopt the proposed attendance lines for Cane Bay Elementary School, College Park Elementary School, Sangaree Elementary School, and Nexton Elementary School as shown. The recommended changes will go into effect in August for the 2015-2016 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We'll yield to Ms. Walford. To my left, Mr. Hayes has made a motion. That motion was seconded by Mrs. Walford. The motion reads as follows: that we accept the administration's recommendation to adopt the proposed attendance lines for Cane Bay Elementary School, College Park Elementary School, Sangaree Elementary School, and Nexton Elementary School as shown. The recommended changes will go into effect in August of the 2015-2016 school year. Do we have any questions, any discussion regarding the motion on the table? Ms. Lee.
What type of feedback did we get at our community meetings, and have we been able to answer any questions?
Yes, ma'am. The majority of our feedback, even concerns, came from the Wassamasaw area, which that's an area where we also addressed. And then also there's a small area of in Cane Bay Elementary School's attendance on Wynwood area that had some concerns, but with the postponement of the recommended changes to the other schools, that was no longer an issue, and we did resolve those issues. We were able to contact those individuals and provide an answer for them.
So we had some questions about the terminal grade. Would they be allowed to stay in their terminal grade?
We did have a couple of questions about terminal grade, and as we've done previously in this district, students that are entering the terminal grade would be allowed to attend their current school as long as they provide their transportation.
Ms. Lee, does that conclude your questions? Any other questions or comments? Mr. McQuillan.
When we talk about new schools and attendance lines and schools being built on time, I look in the audience, I see two folks here from the Hanahan Elementary School Citizens Committee, Bill Healy and Pat Eckstein, and just was wondering if Superintendent Thompson or you could tell us the status of the Hanahan School. Is that still scheduled to be on time? Where are we in terms of the contract?
It's not germane to the topic, but would you like to address the topic, Dr. Thompson?
Actually, if you just give me a minute, I have that in my superintendent's report.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
Any other comments or questions, Mr. McQuillan?
Nope.
Nope. Anybody else? Want to give everybody the opportunity. Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve the first reading of the Nexton Elementary attendance lines as made by Mr. Hayes, seconded by Ms. Walford, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. Mr. Jackson, the first reading for the Nexton Elementary attendance lines have been approved. Thank you. Now we'll move to the agenda item 12, Superintendent's Report.
thank you, Dr. Murray, members of the board, and I'd like to commend Mr. Jackson and his staff. And when you're dealing with attendance lines, that is a very emotional topic for our students and parents and stakeholders in the community. And as we build schools and open new schools, we'll have to adjust those lines. But I think our first approach tonight, we made that first step with the first reading on Nexton, is the best thing for our children at this time. Now, as we open more schools, we're going to have to move lines, so the pain is not over. But I think our first step, we did a nice job with that and impacted as few children and families as possible. Also, we had an academy or a curriculum update tonight. I'd like to thank Dr. Gorman and his staff and the chamber members and people from the community that participated in that. I think they did an outstanding job of informing our board about what a career academy or academy model is like. So if you have any questions or follow up from that presentation, please don't hesitate to contact us. Just a reminder that our next board meeting, February the 10th, will be at Westview Middle School. And one of the reasons for the change of location will be recognizing all of our individual school teachers of the year. We need a little bit bigger venue, so we'll be at Westview Middle on February the 10th. During that board meeting, Mr. Thomas will have our first look at the 2015-16 budget. And also we'll have an update of our construction projects from Connie Myers and her teams. We'll give you your quarterly report on the construction projects. And just an update, on the Tanner School, we did have a community meeting last Thursday night where the architect received input from the community about the design, first proposal of design there. We are still in negotiations and trying to put property under contract to build that school. We do have one of the private property under contract. We're making progress with the city to put the second piece of property under contract. Hopefully we can do that in the next couple of days, but I just tell you, in the low country, there is difficult to find the perfect piece of land, and every time we think that we have it narrowed it down and ready to start moving dirt, we run into obstacles such as wetlands and title issues when we go to purchase land. So there's a lot of moving parts. I think that the architect said that best last Thursday night. So hopefully we'll have some more concrete answers at our next board meeting on February the 10th. But to open that school on August of 2016, as I said a couple months ago, is a long shot. It's still a long shot, but we're going to keep the pedal to the metal and try to get that done to meet that target date, but it is going to be a challenge. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes our superintendent's report. Do I have a motion and a second to move into executive session for the purpose of attendance appeals, personnel considerations, contractual matters, and a legal briefing? Do I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Walford. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. All those in favor of moving into executive session, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. We stand in executive session.